Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you have joined from today. My name is Amit Bansal and I'm going to be your host for the day. Welcome to the third webinar in the month of September. And today's session is Power BI tips to make stuff work. And our speaker for the day is Manohar Punna, who is a Microsoft MVP from Australia. And he is also the Vice President of Data Platform Geeks. As I said, my name is Amit, and I'm thankful to our moderators, Satya and Trisha. I think all of you know about eDominer systems already, and we do a lot of stuff under eDominer, but I will focus on our community efforts under Data Platform Geeks and SQL Server Geeks. So apart from doing a lot of free events, webinars, and in-person events across India, we organize annual conference once a year in the month of August, and we are very glad that this year we have completed the fourth edition of Data Platform Summit, which is DPS 2018. And I will talk about that in a moment. Our other brands and units are SQL Maestros, People with India, and Expand SMERP. And under SQL Maestros, we do a lot of training and consulting, and we provide learning solutions and learning kits under SQL Maestros. Let's talk about our community stuff and the conference that we just recently executed. I think many of you know that this annual conference takes place in August, and worldwide delegates and speakers join in from more than 15 countries. And this year it was huge, it was massive. We had 3 days of summit and 2 days of pre-con. And this picture speaks volume. And someone rightly said that a pic is worth 1,000 words. And you actually have close to 1,000 people in this room. And I would not say this is a room, this is a huge keynote hall. And this pic was taken immediately after Rohan Kumar's keynote. So that was on day one of our conference at Radisson Blu in Bangalore. And delegates and speakers, they joined in from more than 15 countries. So it was massive. If you attended this, great. And so you probably know what happened there. And if you did not, we'll definitely have DPS 2019. So those are the links, Facebook and LinkedIn success message out there. So once you get this PPT, this deck, you can click on those links. So just like DPS 2018, friends, we will have DPS 2019, which is Data Platform Summit 2019 next year in the month of August again. And you might be a bit surprised, but we have already started working towards it. We are doing a few things, and we will let you know as the dates are announced. But yeah, one thing is for sure that this year, rather next year, we are going to have 3 days of pre-conference training. It was hugely popular this year, very well attended. In fact, for some of our pre-cons, there were waiting lists. So we will have 3 days of pre-con and of course, 3 days of the summit, total 6 days of learning. And of course, we will, the conference will be very heavily attended by Microsoft Redmond experts as usual. Those are the links in case you want to know more. You can just drop in a mail at contact@dps10.com or call on that number, and we will update you when we have more information. So here is our DPG core team that I'm sure all of you already know about. Myself, Amit, and we have Manohar, who is speaking today, who is the Vice President. Avanish, Sandeep, Prince, and Surbhi are our regional mentors. And in case all of your Data Platform Geeks members, you might have received an application email. In case you want to join our core team as regional mentor from your city, you can always apply and be part of this great core team, which helps us execute all the events along with our eDominer teams. And our eDominer teams are spread across Bangalore and Calcutta. And these are wonderful set of people, and I love working with them. So these are multiple photographs across our different offices. And I want to call out everyone's name out there. So we have Karthik, Sahana, Trisha, Rohit, Neenu, Meera, Srimati, Satya, Dipti. So these are the bunch of folks that actually behind the scenes execute most of it. It's like you watch a 2-hour movie, but we spent countless hours putting all these events and community stuff together. Let's move forward. And this was a pic that was taken, which you saw, it was taken at Data Platform Summit 2018, our entire team on the stage. So some before important links, here is a special thanks to Microsoft. Microsoft has been a great support for our community events. So yeah, we are very grateful, and we extend our gratitude to Microsoft. All of you are already members of Data Platform Geeks, so please explore the website. You just need to log in with your credentials and you have access to host of resources, blogs, videos, hands-on labs, and you can also suggest us topics for webinars and in-person events. So yeah, explore all the menu items and explore each section, and there is something for you to learn from. These are the groups that you should join, the Facebook group and the LinkedIn group, and there are very good reasons. These are the largest SQL groups on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you can ask your questions in these groups beyond the webinar. You can get involved in technical discussions. You can also take initiative of answering questions of other people who post questions on this group. Yeah, so please be part of these communities. These are two new links that I really want you to be aware of. All our webinars are recorded and they're available on YouTube. That's the link for you to note, youtube.com/SQLServerGeek. So please subscribe to that channel and you will have access to all our past webinars. And I also invite all of you to join us on mobile. So there is an app called Telegram, which is very similar to WhatsApp. And we have our community, a group there on Telegram. You can join there. All the instructions are there on dataplatformgeeks.com dpg-mobile. So if you click on that link, you will get access to the instructions and how you can join on the mobile. By the way, all these links are posted on the chat window on the side, and our moderators Satya and Trisha are giving it to you so that you can just click and go ahead. So friends, without any further delay, I hand over the mic to the speaker for today, Manohar Punna from Australia. Manohar, over to you.
Thank you, Amit. I will quickly share my screen. While I do that, I just want to make sure that you're all able to hear my voice. So please type in yes in the chat window so that I know that you're able to hear me and also see my screen. Awesome. Few assists, so that means it's all good. Thank you. So let's start with the presentation today. Today's topic is Power BI tips to make stuff work. For who don't know me, I am Manohar Punna. There's a lot of detail about me on this slide, but the most important thing is my Twitter handle. So please do connect with me, and you can go through the other details when the slide deck is up on the site. So today's agenda. There is no particular flow for today's session. What I want to do is basically quickly go through a few of the tips that I think are really interesting, and on that, when I do that, I want to make sure, sorry, there was a small mess up with the screen share, so I just wanted to share it again. All right, so what I want to do is actually take you through few simple tips that will help you build Power BI reports and deal with very silly problems or problems that you always face and try to fix them, and there's no standard solution for those kind of problems. So we'll see some tips that will help you in those kind of areas. So first we'll start with how you can actually duplicate your data sets and which scenarios are well fit for these kind of usage. We will talk about date manipulations, one of the biggest challenge with when you're building models inside Power BI for reporting, whether it's analysis services or any other kind of modeling. The biggest challenge that you face is basically building your date dimension. Right, so we'll see some tips around how you can manipulate and play around with dates inside Power BI Desktop, and then we'll jump into in that space where I'm talking about date manipulations. I will also introduce you to some scripts with DAX, and then we will jump into a bit more about DAX and see how we can create measures. Later on, I will completely jump into a different topic altogether. We'll talk about how sharing and collaboration works, which is the main thing that happens once your reports are ready and everyone is impressed with your reports. The next question they ask is, how can I view them? So what are the challenges? I'll show you 3 or 4 different things that fit well with sharing and collaboration. And at the end, we'll see some really interesting features. So I keep the best for the last. So stick around and see what's in store. So the slide decks generally are just only those 5 things in the agenda. So it just talks about what's the easier ways to duplicate your data set. So let's jump into the demo. So here I've got a Power BI desktop file. I've got a simple data set here, product and sales from AdventureWorks, right? So the different ways of getting data inside your Power BI desktop file into your Power BI desktop file is when you open Power BI desktop file, you can click on get data, and then there are different sources that shows up on that get data source. Like you can pull data from Excel, Power BI datasets, like connecting directly to the Power BI service, or SQL Server, one of the favorites, and Excel, of course, is one of the other favorites. When you click on SQL Server, say because I've got AdventureWorks hosted on SQL Server, I can type in my SQL Server name, my database, and in advanced options, I can say I can write my own query instead of just pulling in the blank tables. This looks very interesting and very simple, but this is very limited. When I click on Edit Queries, this is where the whole magic happens. This just popped up on my other screen. So yeah, this is where the whole magic happens. When you are going to build some reports, you need to prepare your data before it's ready for reporting. Your transactional data, or your, even for that matter, your data warehouse data may not be ready enough for direct reporting. So to make that mash up with your data, the query language that is used inside Power BI is M. So M is like Power Query. So Power Query is used to mash up with your data, to play with your data. So in this, basically, you again get the similar experience when you click on new source like get data from Power BI desktop file, but in the edit Power Query window, Power Query editor. Here, I can still go to my SQL Server and select my, type in my server. So this window is similar to what you are seeing in get data window. When I get some data, like that was the first step, where when I click on that cog, so this is where I was giving my SQL Server name, my database name, and then write my query here. But instead of writing the query, what I can do is I can just click OK and go to the next step, where it actually connects to that server and pulls all the table name list. So you can select which tables you want to import from here. Right, this is all good, basically when you're starting from the scratch and you don't know anything about querying, this is really good. But what happens when here you come and see, like, one of the columns is date time, but it's not selected as a date time. Now you want to change that. Okay, there are operations here like transform, where you can go and replace values, play around with the data, change the date time, change the format of the date. You can extract some part of your column and create. So you can play around, and it keeps on adding steps here. Once it get to a state, it's very complicated, right? There are multiple steps, and it's hard to replicate those steps. Like if you want to redo this, it's really hard to do it. The one thing that you can do is when you go to home and select on a query, or select the step that you are at the end step, when you click on advanced editor, this is the actual Power Query that runs behind the scenes. So here, what we did was just connect to a data source and select the table. So in Power Query, you are setting the source variable and saying that's the server name and that's the database. And then you're selecting the item dim product, which is nothing but a table in that connection. And you're getting the data from that table, right? So this is really interesting. How does this help me? Let's copy that script. Now I want to import a new table. What I do is create a new source, call it blank query, and then call it dates. Now I want to import, I know there is a dates table. All I do is go to advanced editor, replace the script there with my current script. And then instead of that, what I'll do is replace it with a new table, dates, which is there in my database, and I will call it dim dates. Just just to rename the step. It doesn't really matter because they don't talk to each other. That's done. There's my date table. I didn't have to go to new source, type in the server name or anything. It's just scripted, right? And if you have 10 different steps, it's just replacing those values and then you create your data sets. It's really easy when you have to import multiple tables with different names, which has similar formats. So let's close this. And when I close and apply, what it does, it loads that data into my Power BI desktop file. Now I have my data here, the dates. And when I go to the model, so in Power BI, there are three different tabs that you can go to. The reporting pane. The second one is the data pane, where you can actually see your data on the tables. And the third one is basically your model, where the relationships are built. So in this, in the sales table, I've got different dates. And in the dates table, I've got the dates, right? So actual date, say I want to map this to my one of the date columns here. So let's try to find one. Say order date key, date ID. So let's map that to order date key, right? But at the same time, this is mapped to order date, but what happens to my due date and ship date? If I want to build reports on my ship date, there is no real link between these two tables, right? So in these kind of scenarios where you actually need to duplicate the data set, you want to call this as the order dates table, dimension for the order dates, and then you want to create a copy of this dates and then call it due date table. Every time you want to import the data, there is duplicate data sitting in your Power BI desktop file. Let's take an example of sales. Say I've got sales table and I want to see the sales only for 2013. I want to build an abstract of the sales and give that table as a table for building reports to the end users. I don't want them to see all the data. So what I can do is basically go to my um, modeling tab here. Right, work with me, Power BI. All right, now it goes. All right, so when I click on modeling tab, you see there are different options here. So there is an option called new table. So when I click on new table, it basically opens a query window here. This is not Power Query, this is DAX. This is the data analytics expressions language. So what I can do here is start building my new table. Say I'll call it sales underscore 2013. So that's what that table is. There are different functions, DAX functions that are available that you can use. The simplest one that you can go with to create a new table is calculate table. And there is a base table on which I want to filter. So let's go with sales and then say I want to filter sales where the year of the order date column is 2013. And that builds my sales table. So this is now a smaller table which has all the sales. So let's go to a table view so that we can see what that looks like. Sales 2013. So in my query window, I can have that query. And then at the bottom, you can see this table has got 52,801 rows at the bottom. If you see, there are 52,801 rows. When compared to sales table, click on sales, which has got 60,000 rows, right? So that's a smaller table now. But what is interesting is this table has so many columns. I don't want to give all the columns to my customer or some other user that he's using, that is going to use this table. So over the top of this function, what I can write is select columns. This is another function which will allow me to select few columns from the table that I specify. So I've got the smaller table. Now I want to slim it down. I want to narrow it down. So all I do is select few columns. So instead of typing the whole command, what I'll do is copy paste the command from my other window and say what I am trying to do here is from that table, select order date column and call it and give it a name order date, cost, and sale amount and product key. So I'm just selecting 4 columns from this table and close it. And I've got a slimmer table, smaller table, which has only limited columns that I need to provide to my end user to build their own reports. There is no additional data. This table is dynamic. Whenever the sales data changes, the sales 2013 data changes based on the query filter. So this is dynamic. This is built on the fly, right? So this is another way of duplicating the data. You don't have to write this query in SQL Server and import it as a separate table altogether. You can manage that inside your Power BI desktop file itself. And similar to this, you can actually say calculate table and create one more table for without any filtering condition, basically, which satisfy everything, and call it instead of order date, you call it sales date, you call it shipment date, right? So you create duplicates, you create different instances of your data, snapshots of your data. So that is what I wanted to show with how you can duplicate your data. These are useful in different scenarios. Let's jump to the second one, date manipulations. All right, so let's pull up my second demo file here. In this model, I've got product and sales again. So you have seen like I've got an extensive table in my SQL Server. The dates table that I have imported, I've got it in my SQL Server. Okay, what it does is basically get one column value, the actual date that I pass in, and there are like 50 different columns in this table which calculates different values for the date, like what is the date name short, what is the day of the week, day of the week for that date, what is the calendar year, what is the fiscal year, what is the semester key. There are different calculated columns, like different types of or ways that you can use this um, date inside your model, right? This is really extensive list. You can get to this point, but I'm pretty sure like none of them will use all of these columns. This is just an extensive list that I have where I'll rip off few of them wherever I don't need it. So, but what happens is everyone doesn't have this kind of dimension dates. For that matter, most of them don't have a data warehouse. You have an OLTP system where you don't even have a date table. In those scenarios, how do you build a date table? If I have a date table, that's very good. I can pull it from my SQL Server. But if I don't have a date table, I should build something inside my model for creating the date dimension. Power BI makes it a bit easier, right? Before we jump into how we do that, when we import data and there are date columns inside your data, you actually see those are treated a bit differently when compared to other columns. So if you observe here, really sorry, I couldn't do that. All right, so if you observe here, you have other columns, but when you see the date column, it has got a date hierarchy. So whenever there is a date column, it by default creates a date hierarchy. That's helpful, right? You have got date, month, quarter, year. You can build drill down reports. But what happens is the year and quarter are not fiscal year and fiscal quarter. It doesn't understand, it doesn't have that intelligence. Where are the weeks, right? So you have different scenarios where this default date hierarchy doesn't fit in. So, and how does these date hierarchies come up? It's a default feature in Power BI, which you can turn off. Basically, you can say, don't create those hierarchies for me because I'm intelligent enough to have my own dimension. My model is matured enough to have my own date dimension and create my own uh, date hierarchies. So all you need to do to turn that off is go to the options, uh, on the file options, and there is a preview feature. In this, you just need to uncheck show dates as a hierarchy in the fields list. So this, when you uncheck this, this happens to the Power BI desktop installation on your Power BI desktop application on your machine. That means all the date hierarchies in all your models, whatever you open on this machine, will not be seeing that date dimension. So be mindful when you are turning off this option. By the way, any other features, any other preview features that are released, you need to go to this page, this options page, to actually enable or disable them. So we will see some of these today. All right. So enough of that date hierarchy. Let's see how we can create the date table inside SQL, inside Power BI desktop. Right. So let's go to modeling tab and create a new table. So let's write some DAX functions to actually create dates, date table. So let's create order dates, right? That's what we want for this demo. There is a function called calendar in DAX. What it takes is the boundaries, start date and end date, and it will give you uh, the dates in that range. So for this data set, say I have got dates ranging from 2005 to 2014. When I do that, it just creates all the dates for me. Come on. Okay. So you've got 1st January 2005, 2nd Jan, 3rd Jan, and it keeps on going, right? This is really nice, right? I mean, you have got the dates without even having the data set with you. But the problem is it's all the dates. You need to know the boundaries. You don't know when your data will go beyond that 2014. It's hard coded. You don't want that happening. There is another function called calendar auto. What it does is takes one parameter. It needs to know what month is the end of your financial year. Say in India, it's 31st March, right? In Australia, it's 30th June. So let's say 6th month. So June is the year end for me, right? When I put that in, it creates some date table. It started creating from 1st of July 2003. That's the start of 2003 fiscal year, 2004 fiscal year, right? And how does it know where to start? Why it's 2003? Why it stops at a certain date? In this scenario, what happened is it actually went through and looked at all the data in my data sets. Its product, sales, or any other data set that I have, any other tables that I have. If there is a date column, it will go and look and finds the minimum date. Say it has found the minimum date in my sales table for a product shipment or order date or some other date, which was December 2003, which is basically 2004 fiscal year, right? And the 2004 fiscal year starts from 1st of July. So it works out that 1st of July is the first date, and the maximum date, the end date, would be the last date and the end of fiscal year of that last date. Say your last date is 1st of Jan 2014. So it will populate the dates till June 2014, right? And this is automatic, right? And what happens is when you refresh your data and it goes beyond 2014, it automatically generates these dates. So every time you refresh the data, it actually generates this data set, and it will start creating more dates. So this is intelligent in that way. Let's make it more intuitive. Like, you don't want, because this is orders date, you don't want it searching for all the dates. So let's filter that down. Let's say I don't want you to look at all the dates. I will filter you down. You look at all the dates, but what I'll do at the end is filter. Filter is a function where it takes a table and a filter expression, right? So the table is the auto generated table for that, and then the filter is, I would say, the date is greater than the minimum of order date. That means only consider order dates starting date. Don't consider everything else. That means I've got my first order in 2010. So I've got dates from 2003, but actual first order came through in 2010. So now I've even reduced the size of the date table for orders dimension. Now this is very simple. It is giving only date column. What happens to the other columns that I want to use? Now what I can do is add more columns. So I've got the table, and then I can start adding more columns to this table. What I want to do is I want to get the year, right? And then say, and give the expression for that column. So, oh, sorry, I thought it picked the date, right? So that's my year. So if I run that, I've got my year column. So it just extracts the year from there. Similarly, I can start extracting my months, my month name, my um, sorry, my month name and my month number, right? From this date, it has extracted month and month name. When I start doing this, this column can get, this query can get really extensive. Like you can have 30, 40 lines or 50 lines. It's hard to edit in this kind of query window. This is where you can start using DAX Studio. If you haven't explored and if you are trying to work with DAX, DAX Studio is the tool that you should use. So it connects to any open models. Like I can connect to my current dates model and start writing my queries here. And you can also see the local date tables here. These are the default date hierarchies that doesn't show up in Power BI Desktop, but you can see it in DAX Studio. And you can start writing your query here and format it. And this makes it a lot easier. And when you run this, you can actually see the output of that. Because I've got that, but without that order dates, I can see the output. Mm. All right, we'll not get into more details about that, but DAX Studio is very good when you start developing da- complicated DAX queries. But the other way is like when you start creating these tables, you want to create more columns, right? Once you have done with this default query, and then what you can do is you can click on add new column. Instead of adding more lines of code, what you can do is just add a new column. Say I want to create a financial year. All I need to do is write that as a separate DAX function rather than including it in my original table definition. So I can say I can extract the month number, which was here, calculated here, right? Um, date. Sorry, I was trying to create a new column. Oh, financial year, it was created. So financial year, and then the month number. If it's greater than 6, add an year. So if it is July to December, it counts as the next year because it falls into the financial year. And then if it is not greater than 6, it's the same year, right? It's a simple calculation. Similarly, you can start adding more columns. Like you can start adding, if this you want to add a column which is a flag which says whether it's a current financial year or not. And if is this current financial year, if the month of today is greater than 6, add 1 to the year and see if the financial year is matches uh, that value. the if condition that you had. If it is true, then it's current financial year, otherwise it's not. All my data is not current financial year because all the data is before 2014. All right. The other thing that you can do with DAX is you can, as I've shown before, how you can duplicate your data, your table to a smaller, slimmer version. You can also create table with table with in a slimmer version, but use it for a different purpose. Say I've got filters here, right? So when I've got year, and when I add it as a filter, change it to a list. Now you can see like 2010 to 2014. Let me quickly actually get my dates here or open my first demo. If I pull the dates from here and pull in my financial year, right, and mark it as key, filter, and as a list, you see this is a huge list. And generally I don't want to look at such old data. All I want to look at is last 5 years. So in that scenario, the problem with filters is I can't filter a filter. So at a visual level, I can't just go and drop in a filter here. All I can do is at the page level, I can filter it, and that applies to all the visuals on the page, which is really not useful in all scenarios. So now what I can do is I can build a slimmer version of this. What I'll do is use DAX and create a new table. All right. I will type in the command, I will copy paste the command here, but I'll explain it to you. So I want to create a, a slimmer version of dates table, which has only last 5 years date, or 5 years. Basically, I don't have the dates, but only the 5 years, because that column is what I'm interested in. So summarize columns, basically what it does, it summarizes based on a group by key, which is the financial year key in this case. I want to get the financial year key, and from which table? From the dates table, and filter it down to last 5 years. So if the year is greater than 5 years from now, like 5 years back from now, and it should be less than the current date. So that's my last 5 years. It creates that table, right, on the fly. And when I have got that 5 years table, I will replace that financial year key with the new 5 year financial year key. And now I've got only the 5 years down there. And if I filter down any of the visuals on this page, I will only see those 5 years, and I can filter down based on those 5 years. So it is easy to create those kind of filter down versions of your tables when you know this DAX and how to use summarize columns, calculate tables, right? So this is just getting started with using DAX. Let's say I've got my data, right? And the most worst thing that happens with most of my clients is basically they get budgets. Budget is set and sent to them in Excel sheets, which says this is your budget and this is the target for this year for this product. Wow, wonderful. Now I have to achieve that target by the end of this year. The only problem is, how do I track till what point I have reached at a certain point of time? Say after 3 months, how am I performing across against my budget, against my target, right? So this gets really annoying when the granularity is at the year level and you don't know how many holidays are going to come up, how many public holidays are there in between, how many weekends are there in between, how many days fall into each quarter. Maybe your last quarter is smaller than the first quarter, so you have to achieve more uh, percentage of the target compared to last financial year. so that you don't have to rush in the last quarter, right? So to handle that kind of scenarios, when I drop in budget, so I've got a table here, you know, this is, you know, imported from Excel, or I've written some crazy logic to build this budget table. So what it does is it tells, you know, for each product for the particular financial year, what is the budget. So this is set for 2013. What I want to do is in this table, when I pull in the budget, and this table is having an x-axis split across each month for the year 2013, which is at the page level filter. What happens is it doesn't slice for each month. If you see, every month the budget is same, right? What happens in this scenario, I'll just filter down this both ways so that to make it easier to easily understand. This is not a best practice, but I'm just doing it for the purpose of demo. So what happens here is, depending on the number of products that you, you know, the products that you didn't sell, your budget goes down. But if you sold all the products, your budget remains at the highest value, right? So this is not actually slicing down based on the month. This is just slightly cutting down based on the number of products that you have, which is not very meaningful. You need to compare your performance against the budget for that particular month. So to reduce the granularity, what you need to do is divide the whole sum with the total number of working days that you have. That is the budget for each day for each product. And then you want to uh, sum it up for the different periods that you're seeing. So for November, you need to sum up all the budgets for each day in November, right? So you are basically reducing your granularity level to number of working days to each day. How do you achieve that? So there, it's just working out the formulas that you want to use. So you want to first get the number of days in the month, right? To get that, let's go ahead and try to add a new calculated column, which basically calculates the number of working days. So it is a filtered table on dates, which filters down all the holidays and also checks if it is the current financial year and counts the number of dates. Countex is a function, right? So this is a very simple logic. It's just a filtered table based on the filter condition, which is if it's a holiday or not, and if it's a current financial year, and get the dates and count them. Countex is a function, right? So now I've got the working number of working days. The next bit is how many days are actually there, and that should be calculated dynamically based on the filter that you pass in. So when you want to calculate a single value based on the filter, that needs to be a measure, right? So you use the same function, but the only thing that you change is you are calculating it for the current financial year. So you pass in 2013, and this calculates the number of days. This is a measure now. This is not a calculated column. If you go and look at your table in the data tab, and if you see the model budget, you actually see working days as a column, and it's calculated and it's static. This value is pre-calculated. But when it comes to measure, that doesn't show up in the table, because that is not a value that exists for each row. That is a value that is calculated as a total. So it's a single number based on different filters that you pass in. And when you have the number of working days and the number of days, how do you calculate the budget? It's divide. So create a new measure, that's your budget amount, and say you calculate from the table model budget, and the expression is you divide the budget with the total number of working days and multiply it with the number of days that you filtered through, right? Now, in this visual, what I'm going to change is, instead of budget, I'm going to use budget amount. And these are now comparable. right? So your budget amount for January was actually 857,000, not that. That came to count. That's actually some. So those were not realistic. The brown bars, the black bars at the bottom are realistic figures, right? So that's how you use DAX to calculate different measures, right? All right. So we have seen some bits of DAX, some bits of I will just bring out the presentation here itself. So we have seen some bits of date, some bits of DAX, a lot of code. Now let's see something about sharing and collaboration. You build your beautiful reports, you want to share it with your teams. How do you work with that? So let me bring up my Power BI service. As you all know, there's Power BI Desktop, which is a local free version, where you can build and develop things. There is Power BI Service where you still can use it for free, but you only get your own workspace where you can't share anything. But when it gets to sharing, that is the pro feature, and you get to create app workspaces and publish those apps to share it with others. There are also other ways of sharing, like you can share a particular dashboard, right? But when it comes to app workspaces, think of this as your workspace where you can build things. So workspace is where you can build. It's your development environment. So app workspace is where you give access to admins, your Power BI developers, who actually can go and make changes to your reports. Once the app is ready to a stage where it can go into production, like if you want to share those reports and publish the app, that's where you publish it as an app and share the app, where you give your users reports and dashboards that you built in the form of an app. So how do you manage control? How do you manage access? When it comes to Power BI app workspace, you need to add individual members. There's no concept of groups with app workspaces. How do you control the permissions? When you click on edit workspace, you can say whether a member can view or edit. If you are testing it for the first time, select that as a view option only. But if you want to give permissions to them, like control it from your Office 365 account, you can change the option to give edit permissions to all the Power BI members. But the recommended option is to leave it as view only for all the users who come through as Office 365 accounts. But you can add the admin members here. Say I've got a second account, I can add it, and when I add that person, when I add that account, it by default comes as a member, and then I can change them to admin. But when it comes through um, Office 365, you will not be able to do that. So let's cancel this and see how do you add members in your O365 groups. Whenever you create an app workspace, it creates a group in O365, Office 365 account. And when I click on members, it takes me to my groups page on my Office 365 account. And you can see there is a group created real-time PBI, right? And it shows you the members here. What I can do is actually I can go ahead and add members here. And if I have got a group, say I have got a group here called PBI admins. Search. Yep. And when I select that, it doesn't add the group. It actually adds the members of the group. So this shows that in app workspace, you can add individual members, not the groups. Even though you select the group, it will split them into individual members and add it. So when you save this, it will add that member to the group, and I hope it reflects immediately, but sometimes it takes time to reflect the members in your Power BI service. But yeah, this is how you manage the memberships in the Office 365 account, right? And there it shows 2 users. When I click on edit workspace here, and then it shows me 2 members. But by default, this was added as a member when it comes from the Office 365 group. right? So now this person can actually log in and access this workspace, but can't edit anything by default. And once your reports are ready, say you are building a report, and I've got a report here, and this report has two visuals that are pinned to my dashboards. There is one dashboard here, and there's another dashboard here. Say my dashboard 1 is ready, but my dashboard 2 is not ready for publishing. So I can say, don't include this in app because this is still in development. And when I publish my app, all the ones that are ready are shown here. Say that day one dashboard is ready, that report is ready, that data set is ready. So those go into the app. But I can also control what goes into the app. I can say, I don't want to publish the report. I just want to give the dashboard to the users, right? So that's how you control these things. And when you publish, there is an option to give access. So this is where you can give access to different groups. So when you publish an app, this is not for editing your workspace. This is for consuming what you have published. So this is where you control. uh, I hope this, because I created this group just before this demo, so this resource is not showing up yet because it syncs, it takes time to sync. But I've got a other group called HR team. So I can say this, I can include the reports for HR team in this app and then give access to the HR team itself, right? So this is how you control at the app level. But it is not always important to share everything with everyone. In those scenarios where you have built a specific dashboard for one of your managers and you want to share only that particular dashboard, you can also share that particular dashboard, and you can give access to a group from here. So you can share a dashboard, you can share apps, and these two can be shared with groups. But app workspaces can only be shared with, not shared, but given access to members only, and individual members access can be controlled at the app workspace level. So this is your development playground. You don't want to give access to groups at this stage, at this level. That's a few tips about sharing and collaboration. But now let's get to that really interesting part. Have you ever struggled creating a report and someone messes with it, selects something and says, oh, I don't know what the default state was, now I lost all the filters. How can I get back to that default state? How can I reset the dashboard? It's always interesting because most of the times you want a reset button. There is no default reset button in Power BI. A, a feature that is now not a preview feature. Bookmarks used to be a preview feature, but it's now in the main product. So what you can do is actually create a bookmark of this view of your report. So you have selected those filters, the default ones, and what you do is create a default bookmark, right? And someone goes around and starts messing with the report. Oh, I lost it. Now how do I revert back? When I click on the default bookmark, it brings back to the default filters, or basically the default view. The bookmarks is fine, but when I share reports, there's this bookmarks may not be available, and it's not easily accessible, or uh, when I use embedded reports, there's no bookmarks. So in those kind of scenarios, how do you deal with that? What I can do is basically insert a image or shape or buttons. Few of these, like just the image or the button or the shape, that I can use and link it to a bookmark. So in this example, let's take an image. So what I will do is insert an image into my report and select the image. Under format image, I've got an option to set an action for the image, and the action type is bookmark. So when I click on that reset, it will select a bookmark, and I can choose which bookmark it will click. If I have multiple, I can create multiple buttons and link it to different ones. So now I set it to default, right? So I have messed up with my report again, and I'm using control, but when you publish it, you don't have to use control. And when I control click reset, it has reset back to the default bookmark. I can have multiple bookmarks and multiple. The other scenario which I can think of, which is maybe useful here, is say I've got a report which is a bar chart, and the same report I've got as a table. Now there is some other manager who wants this, or some other user who wants this as a pie chart, some other user who likes stacked column charts, stacked bar charts. To give reports and build reports and dashboards for each and every user is not practical. So in these kind of scenarios, bookmarks can be used in a different way. What I will do is add a bookmark called chart and add another bookmark called table. In the chart bookmark, I want to show only the chart visual. So in the view tab, there is another pane that I will add called selection pane. So selection pane is nothing but it allows you, so let's hide visuals and fields for a bit. It will allow you to choose which visuals to show. So in my chart bookmark, I don't want to show table, and I will update that visual bookmark. And in the table bookmark, I don't want to show my chart anymore, just the table. So that's my updated table bookmark. So chart is that and table is that. But again, I can add more buttons. So let's add a couple of more images and let's size it that. And in my format image actions, I will enable the action, set it to bookmark, and that's a chart. Similarly, I'll add one more image and call it table and select the table image. And in the action, I will set it to bookmark and link it to table bookmark. So when I click on chart, it shows me the chart. And when I click on table, it shows me the table, right? And this is not a separate dashboard you create for each user. What you do is basically uh, embed the bookmarks into your report. So when they see the report, if I like bar charts, I will click on the bar charts. If I like table, I'll click on the table and view it. So this makes a developer's life much easier, and it's easier to tell your story and make it customized for each user who is going to use that report. Bookmarks is an interesting feature that way. The other feature that I want to talk about, I'm running out of time, but I'll just take another 5 to 10 minutes to close this. The other feature that I want to show about is you have your data in Power BI reports, but what is the main purpose of reports? Reports should help you analyze your data, should help you to find make meaningful sense out of your data. So when you're looking at this report, you see that your sales amount by financial year and there's a sales amount by each month. When I click on 2013, okay, I'm seeing the sales amount for that particular year for each month. But I want to look at profits now. But there's not enough space on this report page. I need to create another report. Okay, there's profits. Now I go here. Okay, I was looking at 2013. Now I need to filter this page down to 2013. It's a bit mess. You don't know what you were filtering here. So you are filtering down to 2012 and suddenly you go here. Oh, okay, it was 2012. It's a lot of mess to navigate. So what you can do is basically sync these filters across different pages. This was a preview feature, but now it's available. So what you do is go to the view tab and there is a sync slicer. It shows all the slicers that are available. When you click on a filter, it will show on which page that filter is available, and you can check these checkboxes, and it will sync that filter across those two pages. Now, when I filter this to 2013, great. And when I go to profits, you can see this is by default filtered to 2013 now, right? And what I can do is I don't even want to see the filter on profits page. So I select this filter and say, don't show me that on the profits page. So it's 2013 in profits. I see that. And when I select 2012 in profits, I see the data for 2012. You see the trend changed a bit if you observe, right? It's like that. Yeah, I just want to show that. Um, so this is really useful feature when you have same data, like for telling different stories on multiple pages and you want to sync your story across different pages. The other bit which is interesting is when you select 2013, there is analytics built into your Power BI desktop without even going into Power BI service. This analytics works from your Power BI desktop when you don't even have internet connection. It analyzes your data and finds intelligent stuff inside your data. Say from June, your sales dropped down in July. Why did this happen? How do you explain it? You need to see what's different products were sold in June, what's the amount of products that you sold. It really gets frustrating to drill down and find that data. What you see is analyze, and it understands that there was a decrease from the previous month. And when you click on explain the decrease, it will actually analyze why that decrease happened, right? And then it will give you different visuals comparing different parameters that may be affecting it, like the sales amount. The sales amount reduced, that's what has happened. You don't want to, this chart doesn't make any sense, but you scroll down by month and color. Month and color may not affect your sales that much. By descriptions doesn't affect your sales that much. But if you see this month and model name, of course there is model name, so some models may have been sold more or sold less, that led to this decrease. So you can see touring has reduced its sale and mountain 200 has reduced its sale. But when you see the amounts, that's really huge amount, and that may not be affecting the whole thing. There are options to see different visuals for this, right? And if you see the last visual, you actually see the sale that has reduced is the only sale that happened. And if you see, there was touring 1000 which was not even sold a single piece in July. There are other things like road 350 which was not sold in July. There are few others which stack up to a very huge amount. Individually they may not be significant, but when you see the top level, you see, oh, these two are the ones which are affecting the sales, but actually not. Their sales are reduced, but there are other items which affected hugely when you combine all of them together. This will be a very important visual. You can't find this kind of data by drilling through, or you can find it, but it will take huge amount of time to find that data. And this intelligence is built right into your Power BI desktop. So this makes your life a lot easier when you're actually trying to explain the differences and actually trying to make sense out of your report. And all you need to do is add that to your report, and that's a wonderful story, right? So this kind of intelligence is already available with Power BI Desktop. You just need to explore and learn more about how to use these kind of uh, details. The other bit I really want to quickly show, even though I'm running out of time, but I just want to quickly show this one because it's really interesting. This is a preview feature again. See, in 2013, when I hover over it, you can see there is um, financial year and that tooltip. Sorry, that tooltip that comes up. It includes the value that is showing on the graph. It doesn't tell me anything different from the value that's on the graph. From the graph, I can make it that it's up to a mark of that 10 million, right? Close to 10 million. That is what this is telling me. That is what this tells me, right? There's nothing more information that is coming out of this picture. What I can do is actually add a new page. here in this visual, say in profit. So let's go to this visual and say, I've got a profit line here. I've got sale amount and I've got cost amount. And what I want to do is actually find out how many products are sold and how many different types of products are sold. So if I add that, do you see that number there? Even though that's significant number 5070, but in that graph relative to those millions of numbers, that is really, really tiny. You can't even see that. That's really tiny, right? So that doesn't make any sense. So what you want to do is put it up on a tooltip. But when you put it up on a tooltip, the product key, I can have it as a count. When I go there, it shows me how many products are sold, but how many distinct products are sold. I need to change it to distinct. Now I see the distinct count, but what is the total number of products sold, right? I can see either one of them. I can't see both of them. How does that work? So what I can do is add a new page and change that page to a type called tooltip or a custom size, right? I don't want the tooltip to cover the whole page when it pops up. It should be very small one. Even though this looks really big, when you actually see the actual size, that's that small, right? Like a tooltip page. I don't even want to do that. What I want to do is I'll do a custom size. I'll make it really small, right? And I want to include the product key in there, the count of product key in there. Let's make it a bit smaller. This is where the general thing makes it a lot easier. This one or something. 5. Oh, that's because of the width. 0 and let's say 140, 130 and 5. All right, and make the height as 120 probably. Yep, that fits well. That's the total number of products. Let's change that. I don't want the category label, and I will add the title. This is just the customization that we can do. Total sold, right? Make it black. I can change the background color or whatever it is, right? Right, make it more interesting. Total sold, and I want to copy that over and say I also want to show what is the different unique products sold, right? How many number of unique products are there? So for unique products, I need to filter that down, or not filter, sorry. I need to count the distinct number of products that are sold, right? This is good. This gives me two different values in the report, right? Let's not worry too much about the formatting. Now, let's call this page, title this page as tooltip. And let's go to profit. What I can do here is select that visual, and instead of the default tooltips, I can go to the format pane. Under tooltip, it's enabled, but it's currently a report page. And instead of auto, report page, oh, sorry. What I need to do here is actually mark this page as a tooltip, right? Now I go to profits and select that view, select that visual on tooltip, a report page, and now the tooltip page shows up here, right? I've done that. Good. When I hover, Now I get that tooltip, and these numbers are filtered down to that particular visual, particular filter, like particular month. So July, I have sold 5,105 products, out of which 158 unique products were sold. In August, 156, right? So this becomes really useful. You are actually giving more information in the report without using much real estate on the page. And this report doesn't look noisy. It's just one visual, very beautiful. And the things that I want to see is just hover over it and see what I want to see on the tooltip, right? This is still in preview, but this will improve going forward. Uh, there are a lot of other features that I can show, but there's not enough time to show everything. All right, so those are few tips that I wanted to share today. Those were the Power BI features that I shown, like the analysis of the data, the bookmarks, and sync slicers and tooltip page. There are a lot more features that you can still go and explore. Uh, and I'll be sharing the scripts that I use, the DAX functions and all that. I'll upload them, and also the steps where you can find more information about the sharing and collaboration bits, how the sharing works in Power BI, and few steps in the last bit that I used here. Any Q&A, time for Q&A. But before I answer the questions, I see a couple of questions, but before I answer questions, I quickly want to switch to Amit and see if he has some closing slides. So I will let him take that, and then I'll answer the questions. Amit, over to you.
Yes, thank you, Manohar, and hope all of you enjoyed today's session. It was demo packed, and Manohar, wonderful stuff in Power BI. And yeah, a few closing slides, and I will not take more than just 3 to 4 minutes, and then it will be back to Manohar to ask questions. So, friends, these are important links. Once again, I will ask Satya or Trisha, who are moderating today's webinar, to put up these links once again for all of you. Facebook group, LinkedIn group, and mobile. So Satya and Trisha, please also approve all the new members from today's webinar. And yeah, all of you can also join the mobile. The mobile Telegram app is great. It will help you ask questions, interact with us while you're on the go. And the good thing about Telegram is that it also has a desktop application which syncs with your mobile app. So you can easily take screenshots and put them in Telegram and ask questions. So it's very convenient. Yeah, so those links are important. Uh, a quick word from SQL Maestros, which is our other unit offering a lot of training and learning services around Microsoft SQL Server and the entire data platform. Classes at sqlmaestros.com is the email if you want to learn more about our master classes, hands-on labs, or learning kits. And sqlmaestros.com is the website you can visit. I want to make all of you aware that we are coming up with a lot of master classes, many master classes, which are going to be all online. So we are focusing a bit on, not bit, we are focusing a lot more on online master classes now. And this year, at the end of this year, November, December timeframe, we have multiple master classes from world-renowned experts like Steph, Greg Lowe, Hamish, Peter Myers, Warwick. We have Andy, and of course we have
Amit, are you still speaking?
Yes, Manohar, are you not able to hear me?
Yeah, sorry, there was a break, maybe from my side. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yes, sure. So yeah, so friends, if you are keen on these master classes, these are going to be 8-hour training split into 2 days, 4 hours each, and these are going to be online. So irrespective where you are from, which part of the world, you can always join these master classes. So the schedule and prices will all be online very quickly in next few days, and we will update you. We also have a hands-on labs self-paced learning solution, which is, let's say you don't want to join any class and you just want to learn on your own with some guidance, step-by-step documentation, then these labs are great. The portal has more than 100 labs on many technologies in Microsoft Data Platform, starting from Azure SQL to SQL Server to Power BI to machine learning and many more technologies. So yeah, there are many free labs please go and create your free account and try them yourself. With this, thank you very much for your time today. Hope it was worth joining and spending 1 hour with us, slightly more. And these are some important links. Once again, the Twitter, the YouTube, the Facebook groups, and the mobile. Continue your learning with us. If you are in Bangalore or Hyderabad, we are coming up with 2 in-person events, one in Hyderabad on September 22nd, and the Bangalore event is on September 29th. Both of these events are at Microsoft premises. So that's like classroom training, absolutely free of cost. So join us in those events. Those events are called as Data Platform Days. With this, thank you very much. And we will have more webinars coming through. Dataplatformgeeks.com has all the details. So thank you very much once again for joining us today. Over to you, Manohar, for asking questions. And Manohar, yes, you can stop the recording and continue with your Q&A till as much as you want. Goodbye.